It's Toronto's podcast on the Canada's Podcast Network.
Today, I'd like you to meet Andrew Novak. Andrew founded his own digital marketing company after a career in the financial services industry. Andrew's from Hamilton and is now an entrepreneur. He's a passionate innovator, a digital marketer, and an expert in search engine optimization. He's now president of Thinker Digital, the new digital division of Hamilton, Ontario's largest full-service marketing agency, Thinker Marketing. Thinker Digital focuses on high-performing digital marketing campaigns that are fully integrated into the larger marketing plans of medium to large-sized companies across North America. So, without further ado, Andrew, why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself? Where you're from, give us the details on your current business. Just a 3 to 5 minute, who the heck is Andrew Novak?
Yeah, sounds good. So first, I'd like to thank you for having me on the podcast here, Phil. It's a great opportunity to reach out and kind of tell everybody what we're all about. So I founded Nova Digital about 4 years ago now. Time seems to go so fast yet so slow at the same time. It's this weird kind of situation that happens when you're doing these type of things. I'm sure you've been down the same path. So founding the company, building it up, building a client base, and trying to figure out, okay, what do I do next? It's kind of like an adventure of kind of a unmapped journey. So you kind of just take the plunge and you just kind of roll with the punches. And either you learn really fast what to do, and or you learn really fast what not to do. Thankfully, those lessons of what not to do didn't come as many as the what to do lessons. So that's great. We were able to grow the team and really establish ourselves as a more of a niche type of marketing firm where we focused only on digital, only on very specific disciplines within digital, and to really build the performance and the name for ourselves. Fast forward to earlier this year in 2018, and we were approached by the group here at Thinker Marketing in a couple of different ways. Finally, I would say the early summer, we came to an agreement and came in-house here and joined up with the Thinker team. So it's been quite the journey. 2018's just wrapping now, and I'm looking back, and it still feels like back in August when we joined. So just time has gone so fast the past couple of months. It's pretty wild.
Cool. Okay, so I'm just going to move into some questions that talk a little about how you became an entrepreneur. So the first question I always like to ask is, we were having a little chat beforehand. You said you started in financial services in the tech area. So what was your stop moment, when you decided, I want to become an entrepreneur? What kind of got you here?
Right, that's a great question. I think it was one of the moments where, I kind of took stock on my current situation. I was young. I had somewhat of an ability, and I figured, now is the best time to try to build something. I'm not going to get another chance. I can't roll back the clock. Just move forward and try and build something and kind of, throw the dice. So, just kind of taking that leap of faith, just believing in yourself as much as you can, and just going full out. You can't really tiptoe into it. You either take the plunge or you don't. There's no middle ground if you really want to do it. Unfortunately, there isn't. Sure, there are some people who can probably figure out how to make that happen, but I think for the majority of us, it's kind of an all-in play.
Okay. So you thought you wanted to be an entrepreneur, but I have this approach called Stop, Think, Focus, Execute. You had to think about it before you made the jump. So what I like to find out is what that thought process was that sort of made you think, I can jump off the high board and not kill myself, kind of thing. Is that what you're saying?
Good analogy. I think what it comes down to is believing in yourself. It definitely is a tough thing to do. It's not an easy decision to make. At the end of the day, the way I saw it was, you only have one real chance at doing something like this. And there's no better time than the present. Worst case scenario, you close up and you do something else. I mean, that's the worst case scenario. It's really not that bad when you consider the prospect of going 10 years down the line and then thinking, what if? And that would be my biggest fear is, sitting 10 years down the line, not making this journey, and then, telling my kids, well, I could have done this, or thinking, oh, I should have done that. And that type of thought process of kind of playing that scenario out, it was far scarier than trying it and not having it work. So I think that was part of the process. Other than that, it was just kind of, reactionary. So sometimes you just.
But why? Well, so you're a tech head in the financial services industry. Why digital marketing?
So it was something that I was dabbling in as well as the time. There was a good friend of mine who had an accounting firm here in Hamilton, and he was looking for help with a lot of his digital marketing. So it was something that I kind of naturally progressed in. Started working with him, and after getting his campaigns running, he said, "Oh man, you know what? You should do this for people. Like, you're really good. My campaigns are bringing me leads. I'm closing business. Like, I'm making sales. You should really think about doing this." And even to this day, Richard, he's I would say an advisor of mine. He's since sold his accounting practice and moved out west and started a new accounting practice. And even to this day, we'll still connect. I was out to see him this summer, but it's definitely one of those things that you kind of you get your toe wet a little bit in that industry. And for me, I really enjoyed it, being able to see an impact, right?
Great. So you found this digital marketing thing that you were really good at, okay? And then lo and behold, 4 years later, you've done it so well that somebody bought you, okay? What kind of focus did that take? Because, I think we all know about execution, and entrepreneurs are, they're ever ready bunnies that keep going and going and going. But successful entrepreneurs, I think, focus before it. How did you get from like 1 year to 4 years later? How did you maintain that focus?
Oh, that's a great question. Putting your head down and staying as in tune with the industry as you can. I'm always reading, I'm always following up with things, I'm always checking out what the latest and greatest is. But at the end of the day, I was no stranger to pulling, 14, 15, 18-hour days in some cases just to push forward. It's something that I really enjoyed. I'm not going to say it was always easy.
Mm-hmm.
Any entrepreneur, anybody who started their own business knows that first little bit is a grind. It's not easy. So it's just kind of keeping your eye on the big prize, knowing where you want to go, and just kind of putting your head down and getting with it.
So people think about being an entrepreneur, and everyone worries about how do I afford it. But did you need financing to start the company? How did you get from A to S, if you like, in terms of
Right.
that first stretch? Did you self-funded? How did you manage that financially? Because cash flow is always.
Oh, of course. When I started the company, it was literally myself, a laptop, and I was sitting on my living room couch. I self-funded everything from the beginning, and started growing clients as soon as we had revenues coming in. You kind of work your cash flow in that regard. So a lot of the process I was doing in the beginning was completely manual, just because looking at automation or looking at more software was an expense that at the time was a little out of reach. I was trying to operate with a shoestring budget. Thankfully, we had clients come on board immediately that allowed for cash flow, that allowed for investing into software, investing into our tools, and eventually it just continued to grow. So I was very fortunate that I was able to grow the company in kind of that organic fashion of one client at a time, building the cash flow up to finance the continued growth of the company.
Okay. So now you've gone through that sort of first phase of entrepreneurship. You built something, you've been absorbed. What's a typical day look like for you now? I mean, how do you maintain the kind of focus it needs to keep succeeding, but still have fun?
Well, I think my idea of fun is a little bit different than what the majority of people would think is fun. I typically wake up at about 5 a.m. And I have one heck of a commute right now. So I typically leave at 5:20 a.m. I'll leave my house. I'll get to the office shortly before 7. And from 7 to 9 a.m. I take care of anything from, like internal things or like invoicing or planning, or if I have, reviews or demos of software, I'll take a look then. Anything that really isn't something that's a moneymaker that needs to be done in the business or in the organization. The exact type of tasks that I'm talking about, the things that
I do, yeah.
are billable, right? So that about 9 a.m. until I would say noon. I could be anywhere between, client meetings, running around the province. I could be virtually meeting with clients. I could be in internal meetings, or even just getting my hands down and dirty back into the basics of working on a campaign. Afternoons typically are reserved more for the actual production work. So I still am quite hands-on with some of our larger accounts, as well as very hands-on with the planning of campaigns for existing clients and new prospects. So I'm still kind of wearing all hats as we transition over to the new company. But it's something that I really enjoy. So I typically wrap up here between 5 and 6, and then I'd head back to home and get home just before the kids go to bed, and then rinse and repeat. So my days are pretty full. Weekends I like to just unwind, spend it with the family, and I would say the way that I have fun is when the weather is good and it's nice and warm out there. Just try and do some fishing for a couple of hours, reset myself, and then I'm good to go.
Okay, good. So you see your company expanding into other areas in Canada or elsewhere, or is it really the focus Hamilton, Toronto, Ontario kind of thing?
Well, we are kind of a anchor here in the city. We want to be known as Hamilton's agency. So a lot of the campaigns we work on, as a lot of the clients we work with are very Hamilton focused, and we love being a part of Hamilton. It's a special city. I think that being born and raised here, I've seen the city go through a major transition in the past even 10 years, and it's exciting to be a part of it, and it's exciting to see it happening. Back 15 years ago, a lot of people joked about the city. They cast it in a negative light. I mean, some people still do, but that time has come that people are starting to take the city seriously, and it's great to see that other people from outside of the region are starting to see it as well. In terms of the business, we have clients all across North America. And operate campaigns across North America. So even though we are Hamilton focused, we do have national as well as North American focused campaigns. So
you talked about relaxing. We do some of our best work outside the office. And you talked about fishing. Is there a place in Hamilton or the general area or close to Hamilton where you like to recharge, get inspired, just think, that kind of thing?
Right. I think that as far as the fishing goes in the area, I'm not too well versed. I typically head further up north, but in terms of finding some time to think and just kind of reflect on, maybe it was the day or maybe it's the week, the month, or whatever it is. I spend a ridiculous amount of time on the highways, and a lot of people think that driving can be a waste of time. But if you're if you're able to do it and able to reflect during that time, it can be a very powerful means of self-reflection. So I would say that either the QEW or the 401 would be that.
I have that same thing. It's part of my reflective time in the cars. I kind of think that's a good point. One of the other things, I mean, do you think entrepreneurs have to be weird or unique in a positive way? Are they wired differently?
I think that you need to be more open-minded. People who are open-minded, from what I can see in the entrepreneur world, follow more opportunities. You know, having hindsight is one of those things where you can look back and see opportunity. And typically, opportunity doesn't look like opportunity when you're faced with it. And I think that's a misconception that a lot of people have. And, you know, being open-minded allows you to capture more of those opportunities or explore more of them in order to make things happen. So I think a lot of entrepreneurs are far more open-minded to you know, just kind of the I would say normal type of person that is that's out there. And that's not to say that, you know, only open-minded people can become entrepreneurs. I think anybody can, but you just need to stay open-minded and stay mindful and you know, really understand yourself.
So, thinking of things, I mean, I know we're all busy, but what books are you reading now? I mean, even or listening to? I mean, with audiobooks, especially in the car. I mean, I do tend to do that. And if you know you're reading or listening to any, can you recommend any to our listeners?
Oh, that's a great question. Typically, I'm on forums and you know, reading blogs and that sort of thing in my industry. So I in terms of recommending a book or anything like that, I wouldn't be able to do that. I've got, you know, if anybody wants a list of great resources for SEO or anything like that, I definitely have you know, my go-to list. So I'd be more than happy to share that. But in terms of books, I'm not reading anything currently, no.
Okay. If you weren't doing what you do now, what would you like to do for a profession?
Ooh, I always kind of joke about it, but I think it would be right up my alley. I think definitely a you know, obviously not doing it for the money, but looking at, you know, being a fisherman. Just something about when I'm on the water. I mean, it's complete. I don't know. I just feel so comfortable, regardless of how choppy the water is or anything like that. Or, you know, I think that you know, being a charter guide or something like that would be right up my alley.
So, what kind of job wouldn't you like to do?
Well, I don't think I would want to be in the tech support industry again. It's one of those things that where you know, when everything's running fine and everything is going well, you know, everybody kind of looks at you and says, well, what are we paying you for? And then the moment that everything breaks and you're fixing everything, everyone kind of looks at you and goes, what are we paying you for? So it's one of those thankless jobs that I don't think I would want to go back in that industry. Maybe that's just my experience in it, but yeah, I would say that type of tech support gig, if anybody's doing that, I mean, all the power to you, total respect.
Okay, so I'm going back to words again. What's your favorite word in business, you know, or quote or sentence that you like to use? And, you know, the one that everyone gets fed up with you saying, you know.
Oh, I'm sure there's some out there, but I don't think anybody's told me yet.
What's your least favorite word?
It was probably my first word, no, for a number of reasons. I think no, when you use the word no to somebody, it can kill whatever momentum is there. And I mean, it comes back to being open-minded. You know, you're not sure where something is going to go. So shutting somebody down or closing an opportunity before it even has a chance to bloom into something, you know, it's something we do every day. And I think that if we just take the time to listen a little bit, it can make a big impact on, you know, if you're trying to do your own business, you know, make a big impact on your business. If you work for somebody or you work at a job, you know, it can make a big impact in your career as well. So I would say the word no.
So sticking with words, You know, my entrance to this podcast is I call myself a business visionary. Okay, if you had to pick one or two words to describe yourself, what would they be and why?
Oh, that's a tough one. You know, I'm not quite sure. I know a lot of people would say that I'm, SEO expert or, something along those lines. But at the end of the day, I'm always learning. So, it's I guess a matter of perspective. I wouldn't really have words that I would call myself right now, other than somebody who's really working hard to try and make a vision happen. Um, Looking back at the path that I've came from, it's funny to look back and reflect. You look back and you're like, wow, I've come a long way. But then you look forward and you keep, pushing forward, and it doesn't feel like you are moving that much farther forward. So I don't want to really put myself in a position of that. But I'll leave that to everyone else.
Now I feel bad about being called a business. So, what are the top 3 things on your inspired life list? So, I mean, maybe fishing is one of them based on what you were saying. But I mean, if you have to say what inspires Andrew, okay, what would be 3 things where you pull your inspiration from?
Oh man, that's a tough one.
Just don't make it. It's not that difficult. I mean, just think. Your wife, your kids.
Yeah, I think it's just a.
I mean, inspiration doesn't have to be. Can be pretty simple. The things that inspire you to do stuff.
Yeah, I mean, of course, the family is a huge inspiration, but I think that just the presence of growing up in the city, and coming from the beginnings I came from, I've always wanted to really push the boundaries of what I'm able to do. So just kind of always keeping that in check in terms of my own abilities, wanting to surpass and be the best to my standard is definitely something that continues to drive me forward.
So I wonder if you have any advice that you would want to pass on to entrepreneurs. One of the greatest pieces of advice that I got given by somebody when I was probably about your age, just sort of moving into that entrepreneurial phase was, tidy desk, tidy mind, because I used to have a desk that was like ridiculous, and it was a bad thing. And guess what? He was right. I have a fairly ordered mind, and my desk now looks the same. So that is there anything like that you think that you've found that other people might find useful?
Other than keeping an open mind and exploring your opportunities, I think the most valuable piece would be to prepare for the worst day. Have a plan ready to execute for your worst day.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. I like that. So this is one I ask everyone, and it's fun. So you might have heard it if you listen to any of them. So there's a small tropical island just off Fiji that only has one phone booth with no internet, which is pretty hellish for you. We drop you off there, and you won't have a computer or a smartphone or tablet or anything like that. You can use the phone booth located there anytime to call the boat, and we'll come pick you up. How long would you last before you made that call, and what would you do there while you were there?
Okay, so if it's just myself, you know what? I'd probably take a good 3 days just to unwind and soak in some sun. Working in this area, our sun seems to set at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, so picking up some of that sunshine would be pretty nice. And I'd say enjoy some of the water, and then make the call and see if the boat will keep me out there for an extra day to drop a line in the water. So
I was waiting for that.
I think that would be good. I wouldn't be too worried about things back home. I know my wife is a superwoman, so and the team here would be able to keep things on lock. So I'd feel pretty good about everything else.
Okay. Well, listen, this has been great, Andrew. How can our listeners get hold of you if there's anything, or is there anything you'd like to add before we, call it a day?
Yeah, of course. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can search for me, Andrew Novak. You can also check out our website, Thinker Digital, so THINKR digital.com. And you can also email me at andrew@thinkerdigital.com.
Is there anything more you'd like to add before we call it quits today?
Well, I just want to thank you for giving me a shout and having me on the program.